My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
And my name is Dr. What, and I'm a total nerd, but you wouldn't know it if you met me. My expertise is in mathematics, history, of course medicine, and all things nerddom.
Our mission is to bring nerd culture to the masses
by putting it all under the microscope. Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, TV, manga, comic books, or is that graphic novels, cartoon groups, that's animation, Disney, Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Digimon, and Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Nintendo, Cinematic Universes, Marvel, DC, Justice League, is Batman, Leagues with Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Avengers, Iron Man, Captain Tropas, Loki, Spider-Man, and Hulk and Logan, X-Men, Avengers, Alien, Galaxy, Guardians, Star Trek, Prick, Picard, and Janeway, Nerds and Geeks from gather around and join them in the Big Fat Shark.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd culture under the microscope. We're talking about
microscope.
We're talking about British things today, so it's time to break out our British accents once again.
Well, at least it's not received pronunciation. Now, if I were to speak like the Queen, it would speak a little bit like this. It's a little bit more received pronunciation. Can you do a good Cockney accent?
Oh yeah, you want me to do a Cockney accent? All right.
All right. Is there many Scottish people in that movie?
Actually, Hogwarts, I just learned, is in Scotland.
Oh, seriously? So we can practice.
We're gonna go Scottish.
Scottish accent.
I'm not very good at Scottish.
Scottish accent's not too difficult to do, you know.
Well, I can do an Irish accent.
An Irish accent. You just bring out the sides of the mouth, and you have a very wide face with an Irish accent.
Is that how that works?
I don't think people tuned into the Bat Jar Podcast to hear our terrible impersonation.
Well, I think I can do a pretty good Australian accent, so we'll.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
We'll stick with that one for the rest of the show.
I don't think there was any Australians in that movie, was there?
Not that I know of, but that'll be a question we ask later.
Okay, that's a good question.
So going into Dr. What, you're back in the show.
That's right, that's me.
We talked about Doctor Who 2 weeks ago, so obviously it would have been a great show for you to be part of. I just want to talk about Disney Plus again because I had the time of my life the other night. I spent a half hour watching a YouTube video of literally just someone scrolling through the Disney Plus catalog.
A half hour scrolling through a catalog?
Well, no, because here's what's happening.
Sorry, that's like watching somebody read a telephone book.
It was amazing because right now, for whatever reason, Disney Plus is offering a free trial to users in the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
So I came across this YouTuber that's a priest who, for whatever reason, decided in the Netherlands, he's like, I found out I could get Disney Plus, so I thought I'd make a video showing you guys what it looks like.
That's kind of cool.
So he spent about 10 minutes just going through, and he was just like, oh my gosh, and it's here, and he just started clicking and playing movies. Like, he seemed very delighted by what was there, but then it got me curious. So then I found another video that was 30 minutes long, and it was quite literally someone's screen grab of them going through every aspect of Disney Plus. So he went by like movies A to Z and scrolled through the whole catalog, so you could see everything that was in there. He went movies, TV shows, animated films, and I was just like, that's on there, and that's on there, and that's on there. And I was like, my roommate was having a shower, and he thought I was like hurt out here or something.
So this is a pretty epic catalog.
Yeah,
that's gonna
like
be
get
on
hyped. Like Gargoyles is gonna be on there.
Oh, Gargoyles.
90s X-Men, 90s Spider-Man.
I never watched enough Gargoyles. I always felt like I missed episodes here and there, and I felt like I really missed out.
Now it's gonna, and they got like a whole bunch of
Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck's gonna be on there.
Original and new Darkwing Duck.
The new Darkwing Duck has only been part of the new DuckTales so far. So,
okay.
But the old and new DuckTales are in there.
Mm-hmm.
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, basically like whole bunch of classic Disney shows from like the 80s and 90s, and then there's gonna be like Disney Channel originals.
Is the Disney propaganda from like the Second World War gonna be on there?
I saw like the Three Caballeros and stuff, but certainly none of like the war movies.
Oh, seriously? Okay, all right. Wow, all right.
The original Steamboat Willie,
really,
Mickey Mouse short is gonna be on there. They have a whole section for shorts.
Wow.
Shorts,
okay.
And they got all the documentaries, and they got the Marvel stuff, and
is Popeye part of this as well?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But even like Miracle, the great Kurt Russell movie that Disney made in 2004, is going to be on there.
Really?
Like Mighty Ducks.
Like Miracle on Ice when the American team beat the Russians.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
So anyway, I mean, I was already 120% committed to getting Disney Plus, but now I'm like 150%. And this is before they add any of the original content, like the Mandalorian or the Obi-Wan series or any of these exclusive films or any of the MCU shows, which since we last talked about it, they've added 3 more they're going to be doing.
What are they doing?
Well, they're doing She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and Moon Knight, which are 3 of the most popular.
Moon Knight.
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. But basically, all that to say, people. And you can create separate profiles just like Netflix, like his video showed that at the beginning. So if you want to share an account with your family, I've already had this conversation with my dad since he pays for Netflix and he gives me a profile. I'm like, here, I'll give you a profile on Disney Plus because
tit for tat.
Yeah,
Okay, so do you feel Netflix is on the way out?
Well, I want to do an episode soon on I'm calling it the streaming wars.
Okay.
But I feel like we can't have that episode until we've experienced
Disney Plus
and Apple Plus.
Apple Plus is coming out with something?
Yeah, there's Apple Plus is going to be Apple's streaming service. It's launching in November as well.
What content do they have?
They're going to have a catalog of stuff and original shows they've announced. So
I'm just like the monopoly that is Disney. Like Disney has like everything Fox has ever done. And that's a huge catalog there.
Yeah, Disney Plus has said they're not going to have anything R-rated, so basically that can be a niche that their streaming services can fill.
So, like, Deadpool.
Yeah, no Deadpool on there.
No Deadpool on there. Okay, all right.
I didn't see any of the X-Men movies. I saw X-Men TV shows, but none of the movies.
Okay, well, those aren't X-rated, are they?
No, but that's what I mean.
R-rated, I should say.
No,
Sorry,
but
X-Men R-rated. Yeah.
Anyway. Point is, and this is also like caveats, maybe I'm getting excited about things. Maybe the licensing agreements for Canada will be different from the Netherlands, so maybe there are shows they can watch in the Netherlands we won't get here in Canada.
Right.
I really hope that's not the case. Please let it all be there. But yeah, we will do an episode on the streaming wars once Disney Plus and Apple Plus and HBO Max, the streaming service that Time Warner is launching next year, are available, because it'll be really interesting to see even 6 months from now what kind of market share Netflix still has.
See, I just got... So I have Crave, and I also have Amazon Prime. And they're meh, but I just recently signed up for, what is it called? Stack TV. Just like as a free trial. It's okay. So I don't know. So I can offer my perspective from that.
Certainly, like, we can... there's all kinds of things like Crave TV, which are streaming services packaged together by television companies, like cable companies.
Do those count?
Maybe they should. Maybe they shouldn't.
It's kind of hard because there's so many of them to evaluate them against, like Apple Plus and
Point
Disney
is,
Plus.
a war is coming over streaming, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think Netflix is on the way out. The reason it was just so successful is it was the first one to do it, and now everybody else is starting to get going.
Yeah, so who knows?
Okay,
but this
a discussion for another day.
Yeah, this podcast is pro Disney Plus. I'm declaring that here and now.
What if can there be a dissenting? No, I'm just messing. I'm not dissenting. It is good.
Disney Plus, and by the way, they're not sponsored. I mean, Disney Plus, if you want to sponsor this podcast, you know our number.
We will do advertising.
Yeah, batchourpodcast@gmail.com.
$1,000 for a 30-second spot.
Yeah, or,
it's a deal.
Whatever. But point is, if you're listening, Disney, we'll take your money.
Absolutely.
But right now they're not, but we're still going to say get Disney Plus.
Okay, quick question. Why did they change it from Disney XD to Disney Plus?
Well, Disney XD is the name of a channel they have in the States, and XD is meant to be that emoji that's like a happy face.
I thought Disney XD was the streaming service.
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Disney XD is like a channel they have that shows a lot of their, I guess you could call it like their tween material.
Oh, okay.
Like all their Marvel shows, all their animated Marvel shows air on Disney XD. And
gotcha.
So, okay, here we go. Today we are talking about the wizarding world of Harry Potter.
Your accent went from one region to another there.
Yeah, it's because I can't do a consistent British accent. So for the sake of everyone's ears, I will just talk in my normal average Joe voice.
I imagine you could do a pretty darn good Hagrid.
I haven't given that any thought, but I'll try it off screen and then bring it back on the show.
You're a wizard, Harry Potter. Is that it? You got to round the... You're a wizard, Harry Potter.
You're a wizard.
Yeah,
Harry.
yes. You got the beard for it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's about all I've got on Hagrid. But all I have to say, we did an episode about a year ago now on the Harry Potter book series.
Mm-hmm.
And that episode, for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, which, by the way, it's available on our website and in your podcasting app, you can go look for it.
Mm-hmm.
That episode was more so talking about the history and the influence of the book series as a franchise. So we didn't even really talk about the films, and we didn't even really talk about the plot of the film or the really much about the setting of the films or the books. It was more so just talking about the Harry Potter book series and its influence in pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So this allows us to have kind of sequel or spin-off conversations talking about the same thing but talking about very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay, so Dr. What, you were not part of that episode, so this is your chance. Tell the people, what is your experience with the Harry Potter franchise?
Okay. I can remember being in a dentist's office many years ago and seeing Harry Potter there and thinking, what the heck is this? And I think I picked it up and I started reading it there because I'd heard about it. No, I read a magazine article in a dentist's office about the popularity of Harry Potter. And by that point, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban had just come out.
The
And
book or the movie?
The book.
Okay.
So no movies had been made yet. So it was just, we were still at the book stage. And so I decided, this sounds really good. And so I started getting into the books, and yeah, I devoured them. I went one book after another.
That's a high-fiber diet you had there.
Oh, yes, very much so. It's Dr. What approves this high-fiber diet of Harry Potter.
Eat your books. Don't read them.
Don't read them. So anyways, then I can remember just going after Prisoner of Azkaban. Remember having to wait for the next book to come out, and I believe that was The Order of the Phoenix.
Goblet of Fire was the fourth.
Goblet of Fire. My apologies. Sorry. Goblet of Fire, the one with all the different schools that came in. Yeah. Sorry. Goblet of Fire, and then having to wait. And that was a huge book. And just being like, oh my gosh, this is such a massive book. And just reading through that, enjoying it. And then having to wait for The Order of the Phoenix, and then wait for the Half-Blood Prince, and then wait for the Deathly Hallows. And so that anticipation, and I think you can remind me of the years here. They started having, it was like a year between each book, generally. Not like the way that other book series.
There were
and TV
several
series
years
have worked.
between each book. So by
There were
the
several?
the first movie came out in 2001, and by that point, the first 4 books had already been published.
Okay, so Deathly Hallows came a few years after that, but the Deathly Hallows had been out a few years before the final Harry
Movie.
Potter came out.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
So did you watch the movies alongside your reading the books, or did you kind of stick to the books?
I stuck to the books first. As soon as the books would come out, I would read the book, and then you'd have to wait like a couple years before the movie would show up. And that actually became problematic for me because I would have read the book a few years before, but I wouldn't reread the book right when the movie came out. So there was plots in the plot points in the book that I'm like, wait, I don't think that like the movie is covering this. I think they're kind of like glossing over it. And I remember Spew, the Society for the Protection of Elves, whatever Hermione was into. That's not included in any of the movies, but it was something that like is a recurrent theme throughout the books.
Yeah, I openly said on that episode last year that the movies I enjoy more are the ones I haven't read the books for. Because if you've read the books, you just watch the movie and you see all the things that they've left out.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm able to enjoy the movies more where I don't have the extra information because I can kind of live in blissful ignorance of like, I have no idea what's missing because I haven't read the book.
You know what? I actually really enjoyed watching the movies after reading the books because I would see the movie and I would think, oh my gosh, that's how you envisioned it. I envisioned it a completely different way. And a lot of the times when they made it in the movie, I appreciated the way that they saw it. You could see how somebody else saw it, and I appreciated how they did it different. Like the way that they would design the Ministry of Magic, I never thought it would look like that. And I thought, oh man, this is so cool. So I really like that. Hogwarts looked like Hogwarts in my mind, which was cool. But then there is certain scenes that I thought, man, I just didn't expect them to do it that way.
Well, sounds like we've got a bit of a foundation here for this conversation. So this is once again not going to be a conversation about the plots of the Harry Potter books and movies. It's actually going to be more of so a conversation about the world in which the Harry Potter books and movies take place, because in my opinion, this is interesting enough to be its own conversation, and it kind of makes you ask some serious questions here.
So we're talking about the wizarding world of Harry Potter?
That's correct.
Not the one in Orlando.
That's correct, which I've been to.
Oh, how was it?
Well, they kind of cheated because, Orlando's Universal Studios has 2 different theme parks.
Yeah.
So you can pay for a ticket to go to either one.
Okay.
And they have, what they did, it's a very genius business strategy, but what they did is they built Harry Potter sections of each theme park.
Oh, really?
And then they built a Hogwarts Express train that connects the 2 theme parks.
Oh, cool.
So on the one side is Hogwarts Castle and Hogsmeade Village.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, at the other park, is Diagon Alley.
Oh, cool.
So you can buy a ticket they call it like the train pass. So basically it allows you to travel between the different parts of the Harry Potter world.
Yeah.
And the way the prices are, it incentivizes you to not just buy a one-day, one-park ticket.
Yeah.
Because the prices are ridiculous. But anyway, all I have to say, it basically felt like I was on the set of the films.
Mm-hmm.
They recreated everything perfectly.
Really?
Yeah, we can talk more of that later, but
How's butterbeer?
I didn't get that.
Okay,
I've had homemade butter beer before, and I thought it tasted gross.
What is butterbeer?
You don't want to know.
Oh, okay.
But all I have to say, so we're going to talk about the world in which these stories take place. So first of all, this is a world where we're led to believe that it's just like the normal world that you and I live in, except unbeknownst to us, there is actually a whole secret magical world that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. What do you think about this idea that there is essentially just this whole other world we're not aware of?
Well, I think it wakes the imagination. That's what it did for me when I read these books. I remember thinking, oh, wouldn't that be cool if there is this other world that you could just step into and there's magic, and magic is real, and it's just been hiding this entire time. But it's a friendly world. It's not a sinister world. But there's a little bit of sinister. There are some bad elements to it. But wizards and witches are. You might actually be one. It really appeals to that childhood fantasy of. I mean, when you're a kid, you think like when you saw Aladdin, you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had a magic carpet? In Harry Potter, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if I could do magic?
Sure. As a person reading the book, that makes it sound interesting. But in universe, I'm not convinced there's ever a good enough explanation given as to why all of the wizarding world has to be secret and kept apart from the they call them the Muggles, from the ordinary people.
Well, yeah, I don't think they ever give any explanation in it.
It just seems kind of superfluous. Like, what is the point of? It's kind of like Wakanda in the MCU. It's like at least actually it's a bad example. That's actually a good contrast, because at least with Wakanda in the MCU, they provide some explanation as to why they keep themselves hidden away in secret.
Because otherwise people would come and like pillage them and steal all their resources and everything like that. Maybe the wizards keep themselves separate because they don't want to A, abuse their power, or B, interfere with the lives of people who don't have it, so that they can each live their separate lives without there being sort of a class society. I don't know.
So it doesn't strike you as odd at all that the wizards decide to basically kind of bamboozle the normal human beings into thinking as if there's nothing special or unique about the world, that they can essentially live in ignorance and being totally unaware of the fact that there are these magical creatures and that there's these people who have these essentially supernatural abilities?
Well, I mean, it might have been done for their own protection to kind of separate the two, because if you're a Muggle and you find out that there's wizards and witches out there, you go on a witch hunt. My crop failed. How dare you, witch? And the witch said, I didn't do this. But then the Muggles go after this witch, and contrawise keep the wizards and witches away from the Muggles because they well, they don't want to interfere with their lives.
I mean, that would make sense in like ancient times, but we live in modern society now, and all these witches and wizards basically have superpowers.
Yeah.
What the heck do they have to worry about being afraid?
They could definitely support. They could definitely help out those people.
They got
around
dragons and magic creatures that could eat humans alive. They got nothing to be afraid of.
them. Can wizards stop nuclear bombs?
Perhaps if they have. Yeah, fair point. That's true. Wizards have no defense against a nuclear weapon.
I just don't know if a cat or cat. Maybe
They could cast like Spongify on the nuclear bomb so
Spongify.
that when it lands, it just is all spongy instead of exploding.
Okay. All right.
So-
all right. Yeah.
But you're right. Like, and this is like related to that. This whole concept of technology. Okay, so I think we're led to believe that the Harry Potter films take place in like the 1990s because as these kids grow up into teenagers, you never see them using cell phones or computers. Like you never see them interacting with technology more advanced than like a color television.
Well, that's true because Harry Potter, I believe, is born in 1981, and so when he first starts like in the books, that's when he was born. So I think I was watching a video leading up to this. I believe he's born in 1981. So these kids, when they do finally hit school, like how old is Harry Potter when he first starts school? 10?
11.
11? So it's 1992.
Okay, so does it not strike you as odd that let's assume it's 1992 at the start of the first film.
Yeah.
You've lived with modern day technology all your life, like pencils and pens and computers and televisions, and then all of a sudden you go off to wizard school and all of a sudden it's like back to quills and ink, everybody.
Well, but they also have them wear robes, and they have them. It's part of the tradition of like an English English. Actually,
I'm pretty
Scottish
sure
boarding
most
school.
boarding schools actually allow you to use a pen, like an actual like ballpoint pen instead of quill and ink. Like it seems like if I go off of what we should see at Hogwarts, which again, Hogwarts is the most regressive of the wizarding schools, but the way in which they seem to like throw you back into like the 1700s in terms of technology. I get it that you have magic and resources that can essentially do things that technology could do for you, but to me that just seems kind of backwater, like taking people, especially if they're children who are born and raised in the human world, then bringing them over to Magic Land. It's like, what the heck? Why is everything like 200 years old?
Well, I mean, for one, it's a respect to the tradition that came before them, so I think they might honor that by maintaining those old technologies of quill and ink and parchment paper and the like. And I remember Ron Weasley's father is enamored with Muggle technology and tries always to have magic imbued into the Muggle technology, like when they create the flying car and everything. But I think there's the respect for the tradition, but also at the same time, J.K. Rowling, when she was writing these books, she wanted it to create an other world, so where you can go off into this almost it's a fantasy, and the world needs to be a little bit more different. But yet, so I think that's why.
But in universe, does it make any sense other than
In
respecting
universe.
a tradition? Like I understand, you're totally right. I'm sure that was her thought process in creating this fantasy, otherworldly experience. But in universe, does it make sense to take someone who has been trained and educated and lived in a, we'll call it the real world, and then all of a sudden you're in this other world where everything is less advanced?
I would say, in some ways, more advanced, because they do have newspapers. They do have a steam train bringing them there. And and they have like train stations where they can get on at. So these are elements of more modern technology that have been brought
Still
in.
putting in like the 1800s.
Oh, well, in Britain, you still take trains to get places.
Well, yes, but you know what I mean. Like it seems to me that in her attempt to try and give the wizarding world a more otherworldly fantasy world experience, it feels very, what's that word? Anachronistic?
Okay, yeah.
Actually, no, that's the bad use of that word. Anachronistic describes items that are in the wrong time period. This is like, but it's the opposite, because instead of something being more advanced than it should be, this is stuff that's less advanced than it should be.
Well, here's maybe a possible explanation. Wizards and witches are very wary of the Muggle world. And so Muggles will develop this technology, and the wizards and witches think, well, we have other things that can do just this, but should I trust this Muggle technology?
See, if they didn't keep the world separate, that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, well, they're just very, very hesitant to adopt this foreign technology when they have their own solutions. Apparently, the reason why they have the Hogwarts Express is because people would take port keys to show up at Hogwarts, and that's a way faster way of getting there. It's just that sometimes people were messing up the port keys, and so they weren't getting there, and so they decided, okay, well, let's get ourselves a train. It's a little bit more tangible, a little bit more physical, then people won't screw it up as much.
I think of Japan. That was the country that in our world, in our real world, went the longest without any contact with other cultures. It wasn't until the 1600s that they actually made contact with people from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
So their culture developed for all of history up until like the 1600s, independent of any other external influence. And so when they started having contact with other cultures, they were very, very wary of, like you say, these foreign things.
Mm-hmm.
And now Japan's one of the most advanced technological marvels in the world because they've fully embraced modern technology.
Yeah, and that's a cultural change that Japan embraced that. So Japan's mindset switched from being whoa, let's take it easy. I'm saying
if the wizarding world wasn't so segregated from the real world, we wouldn't have this problem.
We wouldn't have this problem
in the wizarding world.
In the wizarding world, I mean, they still are doing just fine in the wizarding world. Like they're not like. You don't see much poverty and homelessness in the wizarding world, do you?
Well, that's the thing.
You do see a class society, though. You have like goblins. You have
there's
you
a
have
slave
elves,
trade, and like granted, like we don't see too much. Like that's one thing I think people like about the Fantastic Beast prequel movies is you do get to see more of the wizarding world outside of Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Because frankly, like the Harry Potter books are mostly set at Hogwarts, and the world that J.K. Rowling created serves the purpose of just being the setting for the story. So we'll give them some credit there. But yeah, so let's talk about how magic works in this world. So how I understand magic in the fantasy novel or the fantasy anime setting is that generally either magic is based around the elements, so like earth and fire and wind or whatever.
Oh, come again, really?
Yeah, so like you can learn magic based on essentially channeling the different elements, or it's like a spell book and you learn the incantation, you're invoking like some kind of spirit or whatever, some kind of otherworldly power. And so it's not a power that is natural to you. You're basically invoking some other power or source of energy to make something happen.
Right.
In Harry Potter, it basically seems as if your capacity for magic is like a superpower. It's like you're a mutant in X-Men. You're born with this ability to do magic. Yeah. And
you're either strong with it or not. Kind of like the Force.
Yeah. And kind of like the Force, or like how the Jedi used to operate. Apparently I didn't realize this, but apparently there's when in the wizarding world, when a magical child is born, like a child with magic affinity, their name is written into a book, like a kind of like a like a register, I suppose, or like a log. And each of the wizarding schools basically keep track of who is born every year. And then when they turn of age to be invited to come to a magic school, they then send the letter.
Right.
So magic in Harry Potter works very differently than a lot of other shows that I've watched and movies I've seen, because it's not necessarily channeling forces that are foreign to yourself. It seems to me
it's inherent to yourself.
Yeah, it's like an internal power.
Not everyone can be a magician. Not everyone can be a wizard or a witch. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and you need to have the wand to channel it. Like there's very few Harry Potter, wizarding world spells that can be done without a wand.
Yeah, but they mentioned that in universe that the wand focuses your ability to use magic, but you don't need a wand to use magic. They mentioned that in the first book, don't they?
Probably, but it's been a while for me.
Okay.
Anyway, it seems like a very I'm like, is this even? I guess it just comes down to how you personally choose to define the word magic. Because to me that doesn't really sound like magic. It just sounds like it sounds like you have force powers. You just have superpowers.
Well, how do you define magic? It's something that is supernatural. Just in that universe, only some people have access to do something supernatural. Not everyone has the opportunity to do something supernatural. I think that's kind of how it. So, for me, it still works. It doesn't.
So it doesn't bother you at all, was what you're saying?
No, not at all. No, it never bothered me that. Oh, some people have the ability to do magic. Some people don't. Some people have the ability to flare their nostrils or make their ears wiggle. Some don't. It's just a skill.
But that's
magic being a much cooler skill.
Yeah, like the magic that Doctor Strange uses is kind of the same thing, at least in the MCU. It seemingly is just a skill you have to develop and practice with. It's not necessarily...
Like Iron Man could have done it if he had put in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, maybe not, because I think Doctor Strange works off of Wizarding World logic where you have to have like the magic in you, you know?
I thought anyone can do the magic in Doctor Strange.
Well, if everyone was doing it, then surely everyone would be doing it.
Well, not everyone knows about it. You have to go to Carmitage.
Yeah, again, keeping these things secret from the rest of the world.
True.
But yeah, it comes back to this. Okay, so generally they keep the Wizarding World separate from the regular world. And then they decide, okay, if there's a child born to human Muggle parents who has magic, then it's okay to then introduce. It's like, okay, if you have someone related to you that's part of our world, then it's okay for us to let you know that we exist. Mm-hmm. But up until that point, we're gonna hide away from you because we're afraid of you. Except we'll come talk to you when your child happens to be of our ilk. Doesn't that seem strange to you?
Again, no, I don't. That doesn't bother me. If you have a child who starts showing that they're able to do magic, like Harry Potter is able to do small amounts of magic on his own without a wand in the Dudley household. Now, if you didn't know that there was a Wizarding World out there, you'd think, oh my gosh, this kid is like there's something weird and crazy going on. Call the psychiatrist, call the FBI, like put this kid in the lab. If you find out that if as soon as the kid starts using magic, somebody shows up at your door and says like, hey, the kid is a magician. We know that you love your kid. Just to let you know, at age 11, they'll be invited to come and join us at this wizarding school. If you're all right with that.
I can't understand what the importance of keeping the world secret if you're just going to start telling people about it anyway.
I guess it's sort of a concession. It's like we're going to try to keep it secret, but like this kid. If we don't say anything, it's a little bit worse for the kid and the family than otherwise.
Because what this leads to is this whole concept of this magic world racism. This whole concept of
and that's an important theme throughout the book, and so that's a real problem. There is racism. Like the purebloods consider themselves much better than the Muggles.
And if they didn't keep the world so separate, that might help solve the problem.
You're doing the olive oil arms waving right now.
I'm just saying, like
second time we get to talk about
pure-blooded wizards. So like people who come from families that are entirely magical in nature.
Yeah, there's never been anyone else. Yeah,
look down on and view people who are from Muggle-born families as inferior, purely based on their birth.
Birth, not only, but also an ability.
Which comes from the world living separated. Like
not necessarily. No, it's something that's imbued. Now, not that I agree that there ever should be consider anyone more worthwhile than another person, but that's sort of the natural way that a lot of people would view things. That's the natural way. Now, we live in a society where you have inherent human dignity, but that's not the natural concept of the world. Prior to the Judeo-Christian worldview, people, if you were strong, you were more worthwhile than somebody who was not strong. That's the natural way of looking at things.
It seems to me a lot of the hatred towards mudbloods, as they're called as an insult, or Muggle-born wizards. Or
Did I say mudblood?
No, okay. I use that word.
Yeah.
How
dare you?
And even just the looking down or the fear of Muggles comes from just a ignorance, like not ignorance in like, oh, you're so ignorant, but like the kind of ignorance that describes being totally unaware and totally uninformed.
Mm-hmm.
Like if if the Wizarding World wasn't so scared of like hiding over here behind a magic barrier, maybe they wouldn't have as much. If they actually spent time talking to the Muggles, they would actually understand that they're not so stupid or they're not so inferior, and that they're gifted in different ways. Because it's true, it's like the humans and the mutants in Marvel Comics. The mutants on many levels are more advanced, more powerful than the human beings, but they have equal dignity, as you said.
Yeah, they do have. They are inherently equal in dignity, and there's value to what they bring to the to what they do. They bring as well, but sometimes the mutants might not recognize that. Like Magneto might not recognize the value of the non-mutants. Just the same way the purebloods may not appreciate, say, Muggle technology or Muggle art or Muggle culture. You know?
So even though the magic that wizards and witches can learn in this universe is not inherently bad, there are the dark arts. So there are dark magics that are more inherently evil that the bad guys use as a source of power, where they are it's like they're invoking death and all this kind of stuff.
Dark dimension.
So, okay, this is the world we live in, where these students are taught defense against the dark arts so they can protect themselves. What about the Muggles? The Muggles live in the same world as the rest of them. Shouldn't they at least be aware of these people who use the dark arts? Why do only the wizarding kids get the training and first aid, essentially, to protect themselves from the dark arts? Like, I saw someone talk about the Harry Potter movies. They're like, oh, like Voldemort's like leading this revolution, take over the world. Does the general populace know about this? Just like you mentioned the nuclear weapons earlier. Hey, just drop a nuke on Voldemort and the whole plot of the whole film series is resolved.
It's resolved, but then you've just essentially committed genocide against a race of wizards?
Well, it doesn't have to blow up it can target him and his Death Eaters when they're in like a forest or something.
Okay.
Or bring in a bunch of machine guns. Last time I checked, he can't use his wand on you unless you're in range. So just like, come on, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's one that maybe I don't ever remember them explaining that in movie or in the books. Now, if there's any more keen Harry Potter fans than myself out there, or average Joe, please let us know if they have an explanation for why advanced modern warfare would not work against wizards or witches.
I bring that up just because, again, if they're so concerned about keeping the wizarding world secret and away and apart from the normal world, it's kind of a jerk move, because you literally have within your population these dark wizards who have powers that can sometimes even be greater than yours, and you're essentially letting the rest of the world kind of just be totally unaware of these people that could easily overtake them and do bad things to them.
So I'll continue my apologetics for J.K. Rowling's work. Potentially, it could, if you told people that, there's this other world out there, and there's some people who are really bad, and they can go around and use magic to kill you, and that might cause mass panic. So maybe they keep it secret for that reason.
Like, I even think of a series like Men in Black. Okay, in that world, they keep aliens a secret because there's this understanding that human beings just wouldn't be able to accept it, and the aliens would be prejudiced against and whatnot if people knew. So they hide in plain sight and they disguise themselves as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That good enough an explanation to get through the movie, but just the way in which they intentionally kind of keep the wizards hidden doesn't make as much sense to me. And the more elements they kind of tack on, the more you start to think about this world in which they live, I'm like,
And it's harder to, it's harder for them to cover up the fact that there's evil wizards out there, particularly if you have like people on brooms flying along the Thames River and going through Britain, and you have the night bus and everything like that. I mean, these are whimsical things, and this isn't like, there's the difference between hard science fiction and soft science fiction. Hard science fiction, everything follows the rules perfectly, but like in Star Wars, we hear noise in space. Come on, like.
I call that space fantasy.
And this is fantasy. We allow some liberties so as to enjoy the story.
You know what? I will condone that for sure. Let's start talking about this actual school system and this governance structure they've got going on, because they have this Ministry of Magic, which, from what I recall, seems to be loosely associated with the actual British government.
Yeah.
So it's like to say that, okay, certain people in positions of authority are allowed to know about this secret thing, but not everybody else. But then also the fact that everyone who is living within the United Kingdom is totally fine bowing to the whims of this Ministry of Magic. Like, are these people... Because, you know, in Parliament, if we assume that this is merely just a department of the British government, we would assume then that the minister is a member of Parliament who was elected in an election, and that any deputy ministers or, you know, bureaucrats would be appointed by the Prime Minister. So does the British Prime Minister know about all of these wizards? And in which case, is the minister of the Ministry of Magic... I'm saying if this follows the same rules of a federal department in a constitutional monarchy or in a monarchy like the UK, that's how it should work. But I'm pretty sure it just seems like the Ministry of Magic is like the magic government.
Yeah, it pretty much is. They call it the Ministry of Magic, but they are essentially their own government off to the side. But I suppose, and yeah, they actually are, because they have their own trials. I mean, if somebody commits murder,
so that's not very democratic.
Well, no, they actually are a Democrat. Like the minister, the Minister for Magic. Cornelius Fudge, he was the Minister of Magic.
Oh yeah.
For most of the series, and then they had another guy, and then it ended off with Shacklebot, right?
Those are details that are beyond my knowledge at this point.
Okay, so but the Minister for Magic, he is democratically elected by the witches and wizards of at least Great Britain. I imagine that there's other similar governments for the other
and granted,
communities.
We're not given enough information in the books to really like know that for sure. But it just seems weird to me that like the world of wizards is like so happy to put all their trust in like these like little shadow governments. It's like, okay, there's already a government for the country that we're technically occupying ourselves in. Yeah. But we're going to like create our own splinter government as well, because we, just for the sake of keeping ourselves separate from everything else.
Yeah. I think like they're sort of a nation within a nation, but they're a shadow nation. So they're kind of like, they kind of do have to have their own government off to the side, because, Frank, like the Prime Minister of England and Britain, he knows about the Ministry of Magic. He knows about this other government that exists, but it's more sort of as a courtesy in that, like, it's a nation within his nation.
I'm saying I don't like it.
Okay.
So let's talk about this education system, all right?
Okay.
So let's assume you were raised in this wizarding society, so you've had very little contact with the Muggle world. Like, maybe you'll go out and you'll go on holidays or whatever. You're raised in this wizarding world, and I don't know what kind of education you're getting up until the time you turn 11. For all I know, you're not getting any education. You're not learning math or science or history or any of the things that we're taught in school. And then once you turn 11, if you have the magic in you, you go to wizard school. And again, based on what we're shown in the books and the movies, all the subjects they take are related to being a wizard, not learning how the British government exists or how America, like not learning anything about history.
American history, yeah.
Not learning anything about natural science, not learning anything, the kind of stuff that you and I need to know to have just a common understanding of how to live in this world.
Well, the Harry Potter universe is pretty big, and I feel like a lot of these questions, like they have a list of all the ministers of magic going back to the early 1700s.
That doesn't help solve my problem right now.
No, but like these questions, like in the same way that there's like a Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure. What's Pottermore? Pottermore is a website for this type of thing, right?
Maybe, but let's just assume the worst, and we'll assume that none of their education beyond the age of 11 is actually the kind of education that you and I would have received.
Yeah, so like they're homeschooled up until age 11?
Yeah, which, sure, maybe when they were homeschooled up until the age of 11, they actually got some kind of formation in how to do mathematics, how to read, how to understand numbers, the kind of stuff that you learn in school or through education.
Yeah.
We're led to believe that every class they take at Hogwarts is related to magic in some way, whether it's like history of magic or potions or herbology. Does that not concern you that we're basically forming people to have superpowers and to have the ability to change the laws of nature and manipulate the universe without even understanding how the universe works or even how to do 5 + 5?
Well, okay, let's assume that they had their mathematics, like basic mathematics, basic like writing, basic history leading up into that point. And if you qualify, then boom, then you get to go in. I mean, Harry Potter, when he was living with the Dudleys, he had some education, did he not?
Yeah, he had like whatever grade you finished in, like 11. Let's assume that's 3rd or 4th grade.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if my formal education stopped at grade 4, there'd be a lot of things I wouldn't know. And that's concerning because these are people like, who, again, have the ability to manipulate the elements, to change time. There are methods of time travel in this universe.
Absolutely.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine giving somebody with a 4th grader's understanding of history the power of time travel? It's just
It's a fantasy.
and I'm able, when I'm reading the book or watching the movie, I'm engaged in the plot, and so I can turn my brain off to these kind of questions. But since we're sitting in this space right now, can you at least agree with me that there is some kind of merit to that kind of concern?
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. So
You're a doctor, surely you're.
Oh, I have there's concerns about it, but like to enjoy it, I have to just say, okay, it's kind of like when I think I wrote in a while back about this, and like the Flash, when the Flash sees someone about to get hit by a truck and he goes and gets them out of the way at the nick of time, the whiplash of that would cause their neck to snap in half.
No, because the Speed Force massages that impact. So there's an explanation
the Speed
for
Force
that.
is like hand wavy. Oh, it works.
But at least it's an explanation. We're not given any kind of explanation here. Maybe let's assume that they're learning math and history and science when we're not seeing them. Maybe that's the stuff is happening at Hogwarts when we're not seeing them.
You never know. Like J.K. Rowling might have, like in an interview at some point, somebody may have said to her, she may have said, these people when they were, or like when they weren't, I just didn't put it in the book, but yeah, they were all homeschooled, or yeah, they all had pre-Hogwarts school where they all went to a sort of local little school where they learned these things.
Like even I'm more, I don't care about the pre-Hogwarts. I'm concerned about the education they get at Hogwarts. I'm saying if I'm saying they should have up to grade 12 level learning literature, learning languages, learning science. Like I hated taking science university, or in high school, but I'm glad
they really don't need that much science, because they're like, well, for technology points of view, because they don't
you think they understand what outer space
technology.
is? Isn't it? What's that stuff up in the sky? Oh, I guess it's just.
They have astrology.
Does that
Sorry,
but you know what I mean, right? Like, they have to have at least enough, like, to even understand what photosynthesis is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they have ways of manipulating the growth of plants, so maybe it is useless information. But you would argue that for them to truly understand how their magic impacts the world, that they should understand how the world works.
I mean, they're wonderful things to know, but I think it's like 80% of Americans don't know what the red blood cell does. They don't even know what it does. And that to me is concerning. I'm like, oh my gosh, 80%. And I'm like a really good friend of mine back home. I said, do you know what the red blood cell does? There's a man who has finished high school. He's a good man. He should have had that, like a pretty basic education. He didn't know. He gave me
I'm in that 80%.
Yeah. There you go. For me, that's like, oh my gosh, how can you not know that?
All right, just so for the sake of our listeners, just explain to us what a red blood cell does.
So a red blood cell is responsible for carrying oxygen to cells and transporting away carbon dioxide.
They won't learn that at Hogwarts.
No.
And they learn spells that can heal people. Shouldn't they have at least some kind of understanding of how the human body works?
But you are a successful human being. You've done post-secondary education, in fact, and that's something for me. I'm like, oh, you should know that, but you're doing just fine.
All right, so now let's pick on Hogwarts a bit here. So Hogwarts, great. There's no admission test beyond having the magic within you, having being force sensitive, and you get to this school, and immediately they decide to label how you're going to spend the next 7 years of your life by sorting you into one of these 4 houses.
Yeah, okay, so interestingly enough, that's actually something like the sorting hat's not a real thing, but in the British boarding school system, they do assign you to different houses, and this is just sort of a whimsical way of doing it.
And are the houses in real world boarding schools associated with like characteristics and virtues and personality types as strongly as they are in Harry Potter?
Probably not as strongly, but I actually have seen the boarding school that Hogwarts is based off of. So I was traveling through Edinburgh a number of years ago, and J.K. Rowling from like on one of her walks saw this school. It's very castle-esque, this building. It's not nearly as big as Hogwarts, but it's very castle-esque. And she thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was a boarding school for wizards? So they do have these like different houses, and they compete against each other.
This is more so a sin, I suppose, of the way the books and the films are presented, is that it makes you seem like, okay, Gryffindors are the good guys, Slytherins are the bad guys, the other ones don't matter. Like there's a sprinkling of characters who are Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff throughout the books and the movies, but it's seemingly you're just presented like these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and so what that does is it presents all the Gryffindors is like, oh, these are like everyone wants to be Gryffindor, and then they present Slytherin as like, oh, these guys are evil. Like, why should they even? It's like once you're sorted into Slytherin, they should just like send you away to like somewhere where you can't harm anybody, because there's the way the books are portray it anyway. It seems as though it's a really bad thing, and that you're a really bad person if you're part of Slytherin.
Not necessarily, but like this is also a children's book. So children.
The first one was anyway.
Children, yeah, certainly. Definitely Hollow's not as much. But you read these books as you age. So for me, this was actually came in at a good time. I was a little bit old to start reading them, but if you start off as a grade 6 kid reading this book, you're in first year university when you finish the last. You're in university when you start finishing these books, and you're able to do a little bit more nuance. But when you first start it, as you read the books, if you space it out, you age with it. Which is not a bad thing.
So you would say that the way that the first book,
well, like the way that the universe is set up, like Gryffindor good, Slytherin bad, and even the names Gryffindor, it sounds very regal, or Slytherin,
very sly.
Hey, like a sly Stallone. Hey,
but if they talk about when they talk about the different characteristics of the different houses, they talk about Slytherin being cunning and smart and
resourceful. Yeah, I understand. Like
these are good things.
There are good and bad things about all 4 houses. I'm just saying the way that that world is presented to us in the books, it just says good guys, bad guys, and it basically says, oh, like if you get sorted into this house, when you start, your life's gonna be great because you're gonna be one of the heroes. If you go here, well, then you're basically a bad guy.
But like.
And then if you're in the other 2, no one cares.
They offer some nuance. So spoiler for anyone who hasn't read the book. So for the next 15 seconds or 30 seconds, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a spoiler starting now. So Draco Malfoy, he started off evil and he turned out good at the end. He redeemed himself. Same thing with Professor Snape. But then. You have, I'm pretty certain there's what's her name? Cho. Cho was Gryffindor, and she betrays Harry at some point.
I think she was Ravenclaw.
So, like, these people who can be, they can become traitors.
Those were some very mild spoilers, but I appreciate how you actually took the time to look at your watch as you're talking to ensure.
Spoilers over for everyone who just
we're out of the
that.
Spoilerverse.
There you go.
Very quick jaunt into the Spoilerverse this week. So all that to say, the concept of kind of, I feel like it feels a bit like almost like a class system, honestly, like the way they just assign you to these houses, and it's like you're stuck there, and everything that house is known for, like that's the identity you have to conform to. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for individuality in the Hogwarts system.
Well, I mean, if you look at someone like Harry Potter, and Harry Potter compared himself to Hermione. Hermione was Mrs. Smarty Pants. She got perfect scores on absolutely everything. And Harry says at one point, gosh, I don't think I'm as good of a wizard as you are, or as you are a witch. And she responds, there's more to being a good wizard than simply good grades. And that's a powerful lesson. So you have a little bit more nuance, that it's not just the house that you get put into, but it's also
I should say I'm a proud Hufflepuff, so part of my
interesting.
Part of my annoyance with this system is just how it like and it's that's more of a critique, I guess, of the stories, is how the houses are portrayed. But I'm a proud Hufflepuff.
You got sorted by the Sorting Hat by like some online.
I did like some online quiz. Yeah,
very nice. It's been years since I've talked about Harry Potter. Like seriously, years.
Do you remember what house you would have been in?
I think it's Gryffindor.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I could see you as a Ravenclaw as well.
Probably.
Or I could see you as a Slytherin as well. You're very resourceful and,
Thank you.
and methodical.
Okay. They're supposed to all be like, yes, in the book, you kind of it's a rivalry, but told from the perspective of a Gryffindor. So they're going to be told as evil, but I think objectively you can have really good people who go into Slytherin.
All right, that's the end of my complaints about Hogwarts. I'm sure there's other things I could say. Final thing I want to complain about: Quidditch. So
a lot of problems with Quidditch.
Well, it's a very violent sport and all that stuff, but they literally have World Cups for Quidditch. So they have these sporting events that would be very amazing and spectacular to watch live, and they withhold the opportunity to participate in this from the general public.
Because if the general public saw
just think of how much money they could make.
They could make money, but
and it's a sport that Muggles can't play. Like, good luck playing if you can't fly a broom, guys.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They've got no fear of them encroaching on the competition. They can make so much money. Imagine if Quidditch was real, okay? And you and I, we watch hockey, we watch basketball, whatever, and all of a sudden there's a sport where there's people flying around. You're not telling me you're going to pay top dollar to watch that?
Because the Muggles will pay in British pounds, and then the Wizard's going to be like, what am I going to buy with this? A TV? I don't need that. I got a wand. I can watch it from I can watch
and
things
that's
with...
the other thing, too. They got to have their own currency, too, because
they're a separate society. It's fine.
I'm just saying, if I lived in the Wizarding World and I was a Muggle, I'd be peeved off that they're withholding all these great things from me.
Well, okay, so Quidditch would be fun to play, and I think people I've driven past like the local university here, and I've seen people out on a pitch playing Quidditch.
It's nothing like real Quidditch.
It's not like real Quidditch.
I'm sorry if you play Quidditch.
It's hilarious that they do it, and I'm like, oh, this is LARPing, right on.
Also, like, admittedly, as a game, the rules are so broken, but it would still be really entertaining to watch.
Oh yeah, it's so broken.
And we've already complained about that, so let's not.
Okay.
Go down that rabbit hole again.
I think, you know what? If they were to reveal themselves, they can't reveal this game to the Muggles for the same reason. Yes, money is a powerful.
Whew, okay, so.
Okay. You triggered enough there, bud?
Yeah. I'm actually very impressed. Like, I thought you were going to kind of just jump on the bandwagon with me. And
oh, no. I'm fighting back every way here.
Clearly. So, all the issues,
Kevin
I guess.
Conroy's a hack.
All the
Get
ways.
you off track.
All the ways that...
Hey, Moana's a what now? The cartoon?
No, all the ways in which I have issues with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, you don't seem to take as much of an issue with them.
No, because for me to enjoy these stories, yes, like you can go through and analyze where they get it wrong. There's certain hard science fiction, like... The Expanse. It's one of my more favorite sci-fi shows / novels going on right now, and I really enjoy it because like they take it very literally how like sci-fi should be according to the rules. They bend the rules ever so slightly, and then they apply things. Whereas something like Star Trek or something like BSG or Dune, they have these hand-wavy explanations for it, but their focus is more on the story and the social aspect, and so that is much more, and that's the part that you pay attention to. So Harry Potter, you pay attention to the ethical conflicts that he has, and I mean you can and that type of thing. It's not a perfectly logically consistent universe, but that's okay. It's still a great story.
Yeah, and I would agree. It is definitely a great story, and I think the only reason I'm so fired up about the logistics of that world is because I just want it to be the best.
Yeah, I hear you.
Now, having said all this, people are probably listening going, look, I'm sure we could tear apart any of the Marvel or DC or Moana, like any of these worlds that you're super popularly attached to.
Yeah.
I'm down for having those conversations.
Okay.
We can certainly go there on future episodes. But for now, this is going to be the end of our conversation about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. What do you guys think? Is this a place you'd want to live? Are you happy keeping the two worlds so segregated and the one having no technology and the one having no education? And
Keep them separate.
oh boy. It's
Although I'm not for segregation, just so you know. Putting that out there.
okay. Well,
Okay.
this is normally when we go into the bat jar and look at our mail,
Mm-hmm.
but once again,
No mail?
we have no mail.
Did I not set a precedent for all of our listeners by sending mail 2 weeks in a row?
You would think, but no.
Oh my gosh, people.
So
We still love you.
yeah. So Dr. What? It's time for you to now go inside.
Inside the bat jar.
Yeah. So
It's
we're
bigger on the inside.
yeah. So first of all, we got to remind the people how they can get a hold of us. So please tell the people.
If you want to contact the show with a question or an idea for an episode, you can send an email to,
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at.
The Bat Cookie Jar.
We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share our post on Facebook and make sure to like our page because we want everyone to join us inside the bat jar.
We're on YouTube, and you can.
Oh, did I miss YouTube? Sorry.
Well, it's not written in the little thing you read, so
Oh, okay.
I always just kind of throw it on at the end.
Okay, cool.
But nonetheless, it's on. We're on YouTube. You can find our episodes there, and write a review for us in your platform of choice. That always helps get us higher up in the rankings because there's a lot of people they like podcasts, and so they search for new subjects, and not many people are just looking for Bat Jar,
Mm-hmm.
but they are looking for nerd culture, geek culture, Star Wars, Marvel, Disney. So if you give us reviews and mention those keywords, we'll pop up. So please do that. That would be super helpful because we do want to let more people know about what we're doing up in here inside the Bat Jar.
Inside this big, spacious bat jar.
Speaking of the Bat Jar, it's now
Mhm.
time for you to go inside the Bat Jar and decide what we're going to talk about next week.
So I'm going inside it, but I'm already inside it?
Yes.
Okay, this is so meta.
This is like Inception.
It is Inception. It's a dream within a dream.
That's right. That is how Inception works.
Okay.
Wow, that didn't take you long at all.
What do you want me to try
No,
again?
no, I trust you.
Okay, that I wasn't looking.
I know. We were making eye
Okay,
contact.
all right, yeah, okay, right on. Bionicle movies.
Okay,
All
well,
right.
this is something that someone named Paul Rouleau has
Paulo.
messaged us on Facebook about. So come back to the Bat Jar podcast next week when we talk about the Bionicle movies.
Ooh, fun.
And until that time,
I'm Dr. What? Yeah, I don't know. That was you know what? Don't edit this out. This is hilarious.
and I'm Average Joe.
Come back if that looks. It doesn't work if I go first. You go.
Until next time, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Dr. What?
Catch you on the flip side.
And come back if that looks infected.